Welcome everyone to the board of NHS Direct, NHS Trust. It's very nice to see everybody. Always feels to me like September is the beginning of a new term. As usual, we have a busy agenda. I have apologies for absence from Ruth Rankin, Director of Strategy, who's not technically a member of the board, but is obviously an important participant. She's recovering from some medical treatment. And I would like to introduce to you Keisha Enyuru, who has joined us. She is going to lead on governance and supporting the board, and she comes to us from the Lottery Commission, so a great deal of relevant experience. She's had a baptism of fire, really, putting together the papers for this board. I think one of the things that she'll be doing is looking at how we can make that process go a little bit smoother and be a little bit less painful in the future. Welcome, Keisha. I haven't had any declarations of interest about any items on the agenda for today. Would anybody like to say anything now? No? Okay. Then we can move on to the minutes of the last meeting, which was on the 26th of July, and the annual general meeting, which was on the same day. I think that was our first streamed board, which was an interesting experience for all of us. And maybe later on when we talk about the review of this meeting, we might want to, Catherine, I think you volunteered to review this meeting, we might want to reflect on anything we learned from the streaming of the last one. But moving on to the minutes, could I ask first of all if there are any matters of accuracy in relation to the minutes of the last meeting? Peter?
I need to add my name to the list of attendees.
Oh. So sorry about that.
That's all right. I thought you were trying to tell me something. But I noticed I was on the AGM one, so that's good.
Excellent. I'm sorry I didn't spot that. Any other problems with the minutes from last time? Either the board minutes or the AGM minutes? Louisa?
Oh, just on 6.1.2, since there are some specific points noted. One of the specific points was around, I know Sir later was around the non-clinical team leaders being concerned about being asked to review clinical and things. And I think that was a specific point, but that's not been noted.
Okay. We can add that in. Thank you. Okay. Well, should we then move on to the action log, which is obviously arises out of not just the last minutes, but the minutes of all previous meetings. Nick, do you want to is there anything you want to point out from the log before I ask the questions?
I need to find it first. No, I think it's. I think all of the items, except for one, are on the action log. The specific point that I wanted to raise was about the board's requirement for there to be success criteria for the homeworking programme, and that we were due to have those at this meeting, but that's not. We've not been able to complete that, so I'm just struggling to see where that is on the action log. But it was there, and
okay.
But apart from that, I think everything is either being completed or is on the agenda.
Okay, so we'll make sure. And is that expected to come next time around?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, let's stick that onto the action log if it's not there already. It's not jumping up at me actually. So go on. Any other questions about the action log, Louisa?
That's a very small trivial point. I apologise, but could it actually be called action log across the top?
Yeah. Very good. Okay. In that case, we'll carry on to the obvious highlight of the meeting, as always, the Chair's recent engagements. There are just a couple of things I wanted to say about this list of things that have been going on. The first one was just to note that we had a useful meeting with the Minister of State, Simon Burns, at which we were able to tell him more about the service. He had some very specific questions he wanted to ask, and to talk about the 111 programme. And the upshot of that meeting with him has been that he's going to come and visit the Chelmsford contact centre on the 29th of October, which is nice that he's interested to come and see us. And I think, our experience is that when people come and have the opportunity to see the service in action, that's always, and it's worth many hours of Nick or me or anyone really explaining in a cold meeting room. Nick, is there anything you wanted to say about the Simon Burns meeting?
No, I think it was constructive. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I wanted to use this opportunity to say was that we have been going through a non-executive director appointment process. So the history of this was that when I was appointed substantively into the chair position, my seat on the board became vacant. That was December of last year. Moving with our customary speed, we have got to the point of recruiting for a new non-exec to take my place. We had an outstanding field. We had 170 applications. We were in the position of not even being able to interview all of the people on that list with whom we were impressed and whose paper credentials were strong. We took the very best 5 for interview, and a recommendation is going forward to the Appointments Commission tomorrow. So we should hear very soon about our newly appointed non-executive director. But it was, one of the nice things about that process was it really was an endorsement of how people view NHS Direct and the kind of people who put themselves forward to come onto our board, which was terrific. It's a shame that we can't tell you who they are, but the fact that there were 170 and that we really struggled to get down to a short list for interview is some indication of the quality of the field. And I'm very much looking forward to introducing to you the successful candidate.
Excellent.
Okay. Shall we then move on to the Chief Executive's report?
Okay. So just very quickly highlight a few things, and obviously, as always, happy to answer questions. I will pause on the first item, as we haven't met as a board since the end of July, but clearly there's been a lot going on, and as board members will know, I've kept individual members of the board in touch with what's been going on. Clearly, over the August bank holiday, we had a media coverage of an item that had already been in the public domain for several months, that was blown up as news. The reality was it wasn't news, and the way in which the coverage set out the issue made it sound as if 3,500 staff were learning that they were about to lose their job. The reality was always different, and the various exchanges that you can see that I've appended to my report makes it clear that what was being talked about was a change in the nature of the service being provided and not the abolition of an organisation. So I think where we are now is that we have very clear statements from the Secretary of State and the Department of Health that have been disseminated by them, as well as statements made on our own account, which sets the record straight. And I think that we are in a position now where we are heavily engaged in testing out how best to take forward 111, and we are at the piloting and testing stage rather than having all the answers. So there is a lot more to come in terms of some of the questions that were posed publicly when the publicity came to light in August. So I think from our staff's point of view, there were a large number of staff who really felt that this was a horrible shock, that why had they not been informed, and what on earth was going on. My general sense now is that staff understand the position, and that kind of raw level of anxiety has been overcome. I would certainly hope it has, and that we're now receiving support in getting the message straight across the country.
Yes. Agreed.
Peter.
Yeah, I would just say I think it was handled extremely carefully and sensitively, but directly. And I think the important thing was that the message, the confused message, quickly got turned around into what was the appropriate message. And also, if I may put it this way, it was evidence-based, shall we say. It was there was no emotive side to it. It was straightforward, understandable, clear, and I think the letters that you sent helped prevent the ambiguity that was certainly within the political sphere. I mean, I have colleagues who thought that NHS Direct had gone, and they spoke to me about it. So this has all put it back in the right way, and the clarification of the Secretary of State is very valuable. So well done.
Trevor and then Tim.
Really, to echo Peter's comments about Nick's contribution to that weekend, because I thought he did get some very clear messages out. I watched the media very, very closely, and I'm not surprised, having watched the media that weekend, that our staff were anxious. I'm particularly concerned, in addition to the staff, that I've had contacts from a number of people in the NHS, the wider NHS, who believe very strongly that the organisation had gone based on what they'd heard in the media. So I think it's good that you've managed to communicate very directly with our staff, but I still think there's wider messages we need to put out, because I don't think the communication was handled as well right across the piece as it was handled by NHS Direct that weekend, if I'm absolutely honest.
Okay, I'm going to collect a few more comments and then we'll come back to you, Nick. Tim.
Yeah, to build on what Trevor said, really, I saw the message to stakeholders, and I wondered about the members. Have we communicated to the membership, all 15,000 of them?
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything that we've done to them. So.
Catherine, do you want to just quickly answer that one?
Yes, we got the communication out to members, both email and post, because it coincided actually with sending the annual review mailing, so we were able to do both together and get that out pretty quickly, actually. And to pick up some of the other points, we have also sent that message to all the stakeholders, but I think it's an ongoing process, and we're working with the Department of Health to look at getting messages out across the different professional bulletins, but I think it's something we need to keep working on.
Okay, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. I think that overall it was very painful for our staff, and it threatened to undermine the trust between the board and the leadership in the organisation and the rest of the broader staff team, because it seemed to them as though there was some information which we knew and hadn't shared with them, and that seems to me to be a great shame, and it's not surprising that our staff felt very rattled by that. I agree with Nick. My sense is that the raw anxiety has abated, but that there is a reality that the world is very uncertain for anyone who works in the NHS, and that there are, to make glib assurances about where the organisation is going to be in 5 years' time is not something that we're able to do. On the positive side, I think a side effect, a consequence of what happened, was it enabled Nick to demonstrate publicly our commitment to and support of the 111 service, which was a good opportunity, because I think there were views out there that said that NHS Direct was at best ambivalent about 111, and Nick was able to set that record straight in dealing with the question of the future of the organisation. I think that was good. I think I agree with Trevor and Tim that out there in the world, that there's an awful lot of news out there, and there are a lot of people who have just picked up there was a question about NHS Direct's abolition, and they haven't moved on from there, and they're not particularly close to us, and so why would they have heard the clarification and the real story? So we have work to do, particularly to make sure that the general public understand that NHS Direct is still here for them, and that we're still providing the service, and we will continue to provide the service. So that's an ongoing challenge and opportunity for us to make sure that people understand that.